Philippines was colonized by Spain in 1521 and remained a part of the Spanish Empire for centuries. However, in the 1890s, the Spanish Empire had not been doing so well as they lost Spanish America 80 years ago. So they began to crack down hard on the Filipinos, rounding up rebels in concentration camps, thus starting the Philippine Revolution. The same thing had also been going on in Cuba, and the Cubans rebelled. The Americans later intervened in 1898, starting the Spanish-American War, and in 3 months, Spain surrendered. However, the Treaty of Paris was very controversial. The treaty stated that Cuba, Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines would be ceded to the United States. This angered the Filipinos as they thought the Americans were their allies. Well, they should have known and thought this would happen when the Americans refused to let the Filipino armies march to Manila with them. Although Americans began to have second thoughts about the annexation. President McKinley stated that it was God's will to Christianize the territory and didn't believe that the Filipinos were suitable to be a country yet. He also feared that Germany, China, or Japan might colonize the Philippines in the future. On February 6, 1899, an election was held in Congress and pro-annexation won by 1 vote. The Filipinos would not back down, and the Philippine Republic was established, declaring the Philippines a republic and its independence. Emilio Aguinaldo was declared the nation's first president, and the Philippines declared war. For the remainder of 1899, the Americans were outnumbered by Filipino guerrillas. But a few months into the war, in 1900, the Americans had almost occupied the whole island of Luzon and had been capturing numerous Philippine islands. Finally, in June of 1901, the Americans captured Luzon and held a vast amount of Philippine territory. On July 4th, 1901, there was little to no fighting, guerrilla warfare, as the war continued until 1902, when the Philippines surrendered. The Philippines would be added as a U.S. territory, officially called the Commonwealth of the Philippines. It wasn't all over for the Philippines, though. In 1916, President Wilson stated that, quote, "We must deprive ourselves of that frontier," restating President Roosevelt's stance on Philippine independence. The Jones Act was later passed, and the Philippines then said to be declared independent in 1945. With the Japanese invasion of the island, this would delay that goal by 1 year.